Okay, well, I have 1 o'clock, so we might as well get underway. I want to welcome everyone to the Safe Routes to School Coaching Action Network webinar. My name is Michelle Gully, and I will be facilitating today's webinar. This call is part of a series of webinars developed by America Walks and the National Center for Safe Routes to School. The goal of this program is to educate individuals and organizations on topics that may boost the overall success of Safe Routes to School projects across the United States. The National Center for Safe Routes to School and this program have both been made possible by funding from the Federal Highway Administration. So before we get started, excuse me, I do want to go over just a few administrative details. Please note that all of the attendee phone lines are muted due to the large number of participants that we have on these calls. Make sure that the agenda is up there. Sorry about that. I just realized that that was paused. Okay, now everyone should be able to see the agenda. But getting back to our administrative details, because we have a large number of participants on these calls, muting the phone lines helps to cut down on confusion and background noise. If you have a question during the webinar, please use the question and answer box on your computer screen. As facilitator, I'll read the questions as they come in and respond if I am able. If you cannot access the webinar program at all, but obviously can hear me, please send me an email at mgulley@americawalks.org. That's MGULLEY @americawalks.org, and I'll do my best to walk you through some steps to get you online with us. Also note that the webinar is being recorded, so if you cannot access the program at all, you will have a chance to download it at a later time from both the America Walks website, which is www.americawalks.org, or the National Center for Safe Routes to School website, which is www.saferoutesinfo.org. Now, as most of you know, we're trying out a different presentation format today, and we did ask all of you to send in your tough questions about barriers that your programs face, and you responded with tons and tons of questions and comments, which is wonderful. So we've tried to structure our time today to answer as many as possible, but I do have to apologize in advance if we don't get to your question. Our goal today is to try and connect you with ideas from our 3 experienced speakers, who I will introduce in just a moment. Also, in regards to questions pertaining to the subject matter of the presentation may be entered at any time using your question box on your computer screen, and if we have any additional time at the end, we'll try and get to those. We do ask that if you have a question about Safe Routes to School that doesn't pertain to today's topic, that you please submit those directly to the National Center for Safe Routes to School via their website, and again, their address is www.saferoutesinfo.org. Now, before we launch into hearing from our 3 wonderful speakers and throwing them some tough questions, I want to mention that this is the final webinar in the series that is funded as a collaboration with the National Center for Safe Routes to School and America Walks. Both America Walks and the National Center will be continuing to offer webinars that may be of interest to you. And with Bike to School Day coming up in May, the National Center's February webinar will have a bike theme and give you plenty of time to start your planning. So be on the lookout for registration information, which will be coming soon from both organizations. Now that we've wrapped up our first agenda item, you'll see we've gone through that welcome and administrative details. We're going to move on, and I'd like to introduce our 3 wonderful speakers. Our first is Cheryl Wagner. She is the School Community Partnership Program, and she's from Clark County School District in Las Vegas, Nevada. We have Melissa Kramer-Badke, the Safe Routes to School Coordinator and Associate Planner, the East Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission, and Cynthia Bell, the Community Liaison from the Active Transportation Alliance in Chicago, Illinois. You'll note that we do have our question and answer following the speakers' brief presentations, and we're going to try and devote at least 30 minutes to that. So with that, I'm now going to turn the program over to Cheryl. And while Cheryl is getting set up, there we go. Okay, while she's getting set up, I'd like to just note that Cheryl is going to cover a number of submitted questions during her initial presentation, such as topics on volunteers and community recruitments, and even some Safe Routes to School program startup basics. So hopefully we can touch on a few of those questions that attendees submitted while she's going through this portion of her program. So with that, I will turn it over to you, Cheryl.
Okay, hi, I'm just trying to get rid of there. Does it look good? Is my screen up? Hi. Okay, this is Cheryl Wagner, and I am a coordinator in our school district School Community Partnership Program office. I am the Safe Routes to School coordinator for Clark County School District. Just wanted to give you a little bit of information about our school district to begin with to put our barriers in perspective. We are the 5th largest school district in the nation. We make up all of southern Nevada, the entire county, Clark County. The map that's on the screen now shows our school district, how it's spread out. We have we cover about almost 8,000 square miles. We have just over 311,000 students with 357 schools. 276 of those schools are elementary and middle schools, so able to participate in that Safe Routes to School program. So we have inner city, we have suburban, we have rural districts in our school district, and I cover them all. So it kind of makes my job a lot of fun. A little bit about our Safe Routes to School program itself, and then I'll get into a couple of the barriers that we are overcoming. Our main funding comes from the Nevada Department of Transportation and has been Safe Routes to School funding for the past several years. This is the foundation and basis of our Safe Routes to School programming. We have a statewide Safe Routes to School coordinator and 3 regional coordinators in the state of Nevada, and I'm one of those covering the southern Nevada. We also have received a couple other grants, so our main funding then comes from the Nevada Department of Transportation Safe Routes to School money. We also have received in the past couple years a few other grants, 2 from the Centers for Disease Control. One was a Communities Putting Prevention to Work school, which enabled us to do Safe Routes walk audits around quite a few additional schools and added them to our program. And we did that in partnership with the Southern Nevada Health District. And we just recently were awarded, as a district, a community transformation grant from the CDC. Both of these grants, the CDC grants, the emphasis was on both tobacco prevention and anti-obesity. So we were able to use the limited funding that we got from those 2 grants to continue to promote the health benefits of walking and biking to and from school. The two main grant funders then work in synergy. The funding from NDOT provides coordination and continuity of our program throughout the state, enables us to create training programs for Southern Nevada, for Clark County, and then the CDC fund gives us that little extra push to be able to really, really concentrate on issues surrounding obesity prevention, primarily in the Safe Routes promoting walking and biking to and from school. Okay, so I want to talk just a minute about a couple of the barriers that we have in our school district and share with you a few of the things that we are doing to overcome or mitigate those barriers. Our first barrier, if you are a large Safe Routes to School program, you may encounter this one as well. We are one school district, but we have several municipal agencies involved in that school district. We have 4 major municipalities, meaning 4 major cities that comprise Clark County, as well as some rural communities. There are NDOT, Nevada Department of Transportation roads and Bureau of Land Management lands and all kinds of other agencies that are involved. So one of our big issues is how do we get consistency throughout our one school district in our Safe Routes to School programs. So a few of the ways we do that are through workshops. When we are bringing on new schools into the Safe Routes to School program, we conduct workshops, and at those workshops we involve all. If it is a school that's involved in the workshop, the school team that is developing their Safe Routes to School plan, we also include the various agencies that are involved in the jurisdiction of that school. But I also like to conduct larger workshops where we may have schools from several of the jurisdictions, and we get public works and law enforcement agencies and other people that are in the other jurisdictions to all be at those workshops, because then they're able to share their perspectives and for our schools come to sometimes a common ground of discussion or a common ground of ways to help get around some of the issues. I also participate in quite a few small committees and work groups, regional planning organization, advocacies. Some of our law enforcement agencies have safety enforcement teams. NDOT and some of our consultants perform road safety audits. So I try to get involved in all of those, always speaking from the standpoint of one school district and sharing the issues of our school district. And in these meetings and in these committees now, we have really started the discussions between the different agencies on what can we do as a group to help our schools and help our kids be able to walk safely to and from school. We've completed a lot of walk audits, as I said, with one of our grants, 40 Safe Routes to School walk audits, And in every single one of those walk audits, we invited and most of the time involved our public works, traffic engineers, law enforcement officers, other advocacy groups in the area, and so they also are participating as groups. We have established a coalition, and the coalition contains or has involvement from all of these different jurisdictions and agencies. So we have all the law enforcement agencies from the different municipalities coming together, sitting around a table, talking about their policies, their procedures, their standards, and coming to a consensus on what we can do to help our kids, to help make it safer for our children to walk and bike to school. Same with the traffic engineers. Obviously, there are different ways of looking at warrants for traffic signals. Not that we're getting them all to do the same thing, but at least we have them all together in the same room at the same time talking on one common topic: how do we help our children? And so that's been helping quite a bit, that coalition piece. Okay, a second barrier that we have, and I'm sure this is not uncommon, but our parents don't want to let their children walk and bike to school. They say it's too far, or it's not safe for my children to walk to school. So some of the ways we are getting around that particular barrier is by doing a lot of presentations and a lot of talks and a lot of meetings with our state PTA organization, our regionals, and our local PTAs or parent-teacher organizations or just groups of parents at our schools, sharing with them what Safe Routes to School is, the benefits of it, and what we are doing and what we can do to help make walking and biking to school possible and safe. Parents are an important part of our Safe Routes to School teams. When a school is encompassing Safe Routes to School, they do have to bring in some parents as part of that team, and the parents play a vital role in helping to set up what programs, how we're going to do it. They know the needs, they know what the concerns are, and we are able then to address those concerns with the parents as part of that team. I provide train-the-trainer courses. These are workshops that provide tools and resources necessary for schools and school teams to provide bicycle rodeos and bicycle pedestrian safety events. Those we definitely include parents as much as possible and train the parents so that they are able to take these programs back to their school and run programs themselves at their school. The health benefits has become a big talking point in our district. The health benefits are very important, and once we help the parents see the benefits of that 15 minutes of walking in the morning and the 15 minutes of walking in the afternoon, they're starting to buy in and see the benefits of it. We have some parents now that are walking their children to school and then continuing a walk with a group of other parents. We have several encouragement activities that go on throughout the year. International Walk to School Day, we participate across the district in it. And we also, our state Safe Routes to School coordinator a couple of years ago started a Nevada Moves Day, which is a walk to school day in the spring, which has become very popular and very active here. Getting the parents involved in those programs is really important and helps them see how fun and see how beneficial walking and biking to school can be. As far as the safety issue, we have garnered tons of support from our local law enforcement agencies, all of them involved, the Las Vegas and the North Las Vegas and the Henderson and the Clark County School District Police are very supportive of our programs, and they do make a presence a little bit stronger at the schools when we request it at our schools that are participating in Safe Routes to School. The third barrier, the last barrier that I want to hit on just very quickly, is the sheer size of our district. As I said in the opening, we have nearly 8,000 square miles that we have to cover. That's a lot of distance, a lot of schools. And we wanted to make Safe Routes to School available to all of the schools that can participate. With one coordinator for the entire district, it's a little bit difficult, so how do we do that? One of the ways we have approached the size issue is, over the last several years, we have trained a cadre of teachers in our school district, and we've trained them to present some of the workshops, the Bike, Ped, Rodeo, Train the Trainer workshops, and they are an integral part of our Safe Routes to School, Big School workshops, and they act as mentors to new schools that are coming on. So that teacher cadre has been very helpful. We've been lucky to include in both funding sources through NDOT and through the CDC grants, some professional development funding that we've been able to help supplement these teachers with the time that they put in after school, before school, on weekends to run these workshops and to help mentor some of the newer programs coming on. It's really been beneficial. So now we have one coordinator, and currently we have 4 full-time teacher cadre members that do a lot of work, not full-time teachers, but not full-time on the cadre, but they do work regularly for us, and we are building that every day. The coalition provides us with a lot of other community people who can help with different components. If we have safety issues at a particular school, our coalition has provided me with a way to immediately be able to contact, let's say, law enforcement officers that are involved in a particular community that might be having issues. So that helps. So I'm not the one that has to answer all of the questions and all of the issues. Partnerships are absolutely critical. Currently, we have more than 120 community partners, including individuals, organizations, and businesses. The 2 pictures that I popped up are just to kind of remind me of a couple examples that I want you to see how these partners have helped us spread across this huge district. The top picture was on one of our Nevada Moves Day. This was at a school that I was not able to be at. It was at another school, and it was a school in Henderson, one of our communities. And the picture shows 3 adults who were at that particular school helping with the Nevada Moves Day events at that school. And the 3 individuals pictured are representative of our partners. The gentleman that you see is the head of the Public Works Division for the City of Henderson. The lady in the background is the crossing guard supervisor. She works for the local law enforcement agency. And the lady in the front is a member of one of our advocacy organizations, Lookout Kids About, who is very involved in several of our schools. But they were able then, our partners were able to be at that school and help that school that morning. And we had examples like that all over our district. The bottom picture shows an event. We had an event called the Las Vegas Science Festival, and Safe Routes to School had a booth at that promoting safety and the health benefits of walking and riding their bikes. And before the event, which was a 12-hour day, I put a call out to my 120 community partners and said, hey, does anybody want to help with this? And all kinds of people stepped forward and said, I can give you 2 hours. The picture that you see, the gentleman in this is one of the engineers at one of the consulting firms that does work for our traffic divisions across the state. It's him and his wife, and they came and helped out at our booth for a couple hours. It was great. So in general, some general thoughts on overcoming barriers, and added to the ones that I just talked about, are media partnerships. Take advantage of media whenever you can. We have our local news stations have really come on board to promote crosswalk safety. Channel 13, the one that's up here, developed a pledge that people can take, and they also made a video that we were able to distribute free, no cost, to all of our students across our entire district, to all of our schools, I mean, stressing the importance of crosswalk safety and how to cross safely. Very valuable. It's really important for everybody to participate in community events that are not necessarily safe routes to school, but that our partners are part of, and we help to promote biking and walking as a big benefit to families and to children. And it's really important to support other organizations and agencies. If we're asking the police department to come out and help teach safety at our schools, we want to support them as well. Even when it's June in Las Vegas and 120 degrees, when they have a summer safety fair, we made sure that the Safe Routes to School program was part of that safety fair. I have to give a kudos because our program is working in our district. Just one school example here for those of you that are still questioning whether Safe Routes to School can work or not. In the spring of 2011, one of our schools was measured using the National Safe Routes to School parent survey. We had less than 20% of the children at that school were walking and biking. Most were riding in cars. 1 year later, after implementation of the Safe Routes to School program, we had nearly 30%, so a 10% increase in walkers and bikers. And that was just after 1 year, a little bit less than a year actually, of participation in Safe Routes to School program. So if you bring all of the agencies together, you promote it, you do it right, you get parents involved, you can see marked changes in the use of alternative modes of transportation. So I thank you for listening to me. I hope you got some information about how we overcome some of our barriers, and I would like to turn it now back over to Michelle.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Cheryl. That was very informative. Now I'm going to turn things over to Melissa Kramer-Badke, and while Melissa's getting set up, I'll just let you know a little bit about her. She is the Safe Routes to School Coordinator and Associate Planner from East Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission. And also, I'd like to note that while Melissa's giving her presentation, she will touch on a number of submitted questions as well. Topics that she may cover include safety and infrastructure, climate, and handling large geographic or rural regions when running a Safe Routes to School program. So those folks who submitted questions on that, make sure to keep your ears open because Melissa will touch on those for you. So Melissa, I'll turn it over to you.
Great. Thanks, Michelle. Hi, everyone. As Michelle mentioned, my name is Melissa Kramer-Badke, and I'm the Safe Routes to School Coordinator for the East Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission. And I will be talking about how some of our local Safe Routes to School programs have utilized creative strategies for overcoming challenges in developing their program. With the Regional Safe Routes to School program, we work with a number of communities and school districts, each having their own challenges and barriers. And today, I'm just going to talk about some of the common challenges that a few of our school districts and communities have faced or continue to face. These include working with multiple jurisdictions, logistics and safety, and developing a successful rural Safe Routes to School program. With the geography of our Regional Safe Routes to School program, we work with 10 counties, a large number of municipalities, 1 tribal community, and over 100 schools. One of the challenges that we face with the Regional Safe Routes to School program is that the school district boundaries do not follow local municipality boundaries. So when we are working with a school district on their Safe Routes to School program, we will likely be working with at least 2 municipalities and 1 county. To overcome this, we've included representation from multiple municipalities on the task force. We invite and include representatives from 2 counties, or two representatives from the county. So 1 could be a representative from the Public Works Department and 1 from the County Sheriff's Department. If we're working with a school district with multiple schools, we ask that there be at least 1 representative from each school. And usually we actually ask if there would be 2, so 1 would serve as an alternate in case the other one is unable to attend the meeting. As we develop our local Safe Routes to School plan, we also look at policies. We work with the local task force to take a look and review policies for transportation, snowplow or snow removal for individual municipalities and for schools. One other barrier that has also come up from working with school districts falling within multiple jurisdictions is the designation of unusually hazardous busing situations. In Wisconsin, the County Sheriff's Department is the entity that designates whether or not a roadway is hazardous and if students will have to be bused. We have 1 school district within our region that falls within 2 counties and 3 municipalities. Currently, 1 sheriff's department is designating the hazardous busing for the other county, and the designation is very objective. It doesn't provide the school district with what it would need to remove the unusually hazardous busing situation and try to get more students walking. We are working with the local sheriff's departments to utilize an unusually hazardous busing situation criteria that was developed in La Crosse County, Wisconsin. The criteria looks at the age of the students attending the school, the speed limit of the roadway, are there sidewalks or not, and many others. It then assigns a point value to the roadway and provides direction for the local municipality and the school district on how they would be able to make it safe for students to walk or bike to school. In addition, we've been working with local law enforcement to provide bicycle and pedestrian training opportunities. Logistics and safety. One of our major barriers is our winter months here in Wisconsin. A few years ago, we started getting requests from our local communities to come out and do a winter bike and walk audit at the schools. School representatives had concerns regarding snow banks, snow removal, and the visibility of students. So this is Edison Elementary School here in Appleton, Wisconsin, and it's a neighborhood school where the majority of the students walk to school. After a snowstorm, and this was a few years ago, we had we were asked to conduct a winter bike and walk audit. And as you can see here from the pictures, there were parents dropping off students, and a private company in the lower picture was actually removing snow for the city. And this was right around the time when students would be walking to school. We worked with the City of Appleton to have the private company come at a different time, either before school started, early enough before the students were getting to the school, or after school started. There's also a transit bus stop directly across from the school, and we have worked with the transit agency to discuss if it would be possible to either change the route or adjust the stop points because of the congestion at and around the school. They've also worked with their buildings and grounds crew to remove the snow in that upper picture. That's actually usually a drop-off area, and as you can see here, it was completely covered with snow when we were at the bike and walk audit. Webster Stanley Elementary and Middle Schools has another example of logistics and safety. In the spring of 2011, we had a batch of warm weather and students began bicycling to school. However, during the winter months, the grounds crew had piled snow on the bike racks. So even though it was warm enough for students to bike to school, there was no place for them to park their bikes when they arrived. Staff worked with the building and grounds manager, who then worked with the grounds crew to fix that problem so that at least one bike rack would be clear of snow throughout the year. And in rural communities, we often see a strong connection between the school district and the community. In Coloma, during the winter months, students from the elementary school shovel the sidewalk that leads from the school to Main Street in the village of Coloma. This community service project benefits not only the residents living along that roadway, but also the students, since that is the main sidewalk traveled by the students on their way to and from school. So developing a successful rural Safe Routes to School program. Many times when we first talk to a rural community or a school about the Safe Routes to School program, we will hear that they believe the program is better suited for an urban area, particularly because the majority of their students are bused to and from school. What we have done to help schools participate and get more students walking or biking is to allow the school to choose activities that are best suited for their program and be creative in the way they implement their Safe Routes to School activities. For example, Emmanuel Lutheran School in Greenville is located off of 2 town roads and is unwalkable or bikeable for students. The students and staff have participated in International Walk to School Day every year. The students and staff are bused to a local Lions Park and then walk along 1 mile of trail leading to the community park. And here you can see pictures of their event. So their entire school participates in Walk to School Day. In Shawano Area School District, the focus is really on physical activity versus active transportation. For International Walk to School Day this year, they flip-flopped their bus drop-off. Students attending Olga Brenner Intermediate School were dropped off at the Shawano Middle School, and students attending Shawano Middle School were dropped off at Olga Brenner Intermediate School. All of the students that had been bused participated in the event, and they had a designated drop-off site off of the school campus at a church. In the future, the Shawano Area Task Force is looking to use International Walk to School Day to kick off their Walking Wednesday program in the fall. They would like to try to see more students walking regularly. In addition, another school in our region, Reedfield Elementary School in New London, wanted to have their students participate in a regular walking program. The school is located off of a state highway, and all the students are bused. Their principal and physical education teacher developed a walking route around their campus, and the program was built into their physical education curriculum. So the classrooms at the school have competitions to see who can walk the most miles. Students receive punch cards and tow tokens to track their miles, and a bulletin board in the school shows which class is walking the most miles. Excuse me. Perhaps one of our most popular items with the Regional Safe Routes to School program is our bicycle blenders. When we began developing the Regional Safe Routes to School program, we knew that the majority of our school districts are rural in nature and the majority of the students would be bused. We purchased 3 bicycle blenders that schools are able to check out throughout the school year. Many times we will take the blenders to the school and do a Protect Your Melon presentation prior to the students racing on the bike blenders. Schools have also used the bike blenders to talk about nutrition and why it is important to be physically active. And here you can see a couple of our students that have used the bike blenders to create smoothies and have class competitions to see who can go farther. Bicycling field trips is one of our most popular activities that rural school districts do. Last year we had 2 to 3 districts that had their students participate in a bicycling field trip. And this allows students to practice their bicycling skills in the field. Although the majority of the students are bused to and from school, rural communities usually have wonderful roads to bike on with low traffic volumes. And here you'll see a few of those pictures as well. Oops, sorry, wrong way. One important key to developing a successful rural program is to work with your local advocacy organization. Advocacy organizations have a lot of established connections within the community, and they have been able to help coordinate events such as International Walk to School Day, Bike to School Day, bike rodeos, and the Walking School Bus program. Advocacy organizations are critical to the development of a rural Safe Routes to School program because they are able to make the program a community-wide initiative. And here are just a few of the advocacy organizations that we have worked with. Green Lake Greenways, they actually help sponsor some of our Walking School Bus programs. We worked with Fox Cities Greenways, and up in Shawano, their local advocacy organizations help coordinate the International Walk to School Day event for their school. And here is my contact information. We also have 2 other staff here at the Regional Planning Commission that work on Safe Routes to School, and I've just listed them as well. But right now, I will turn it over to Michelle.
Great. Thank you so much, Melissa. I'm now going to turn things over to Cynthia. While Cynthia is getting set up, I'll let you know a little bit about her. Cynthia Bell is the Community Liaison from the Active Transportation Alliance, and she is coming to us today from Chicago, Illinois, to give us the urban perspective. So, Cynthia, I'll now turn it over to you.
Thanks, Michelle. Again, my name is Cynthia Bell, and I'm the Community Liaison for the Active Transportation Alliance. And today I'm going to present on unique barriers to walking and biking in schools in the city. So let me give you a little background about the city of Chicago. We have about 681 schools in the city, which includes elementary, high school, charter, contract schools, and we have roughly about 350,000 students in those schools. Majority of the schools are neighborhood schools, but we do have CPS schools that have we do have magnet schools, so some of the students are bused. And the district is very diverse. We have over 80% of the students, which is African American and Latino, and we have 87% of the students which are low income. Okay, so some of the students and family in Chicago face many of the same challenges. Some of those challenges you heard today from the different presenters. Busy streets with dangerous traffic is a big problem. According to the Chicago Police Department, there were 48 pedestrians killed in traffic crashes in 2012. So, yeah, we do have crashes here. We deal with distance when it comes to charter and magnet schools and other problems. But larger cities, we face challenges to walking and biking to schools that other communities may not deal with, such as abandoned building and vacant lots, minimum bike facility and resources, and most importantly, crime and violence, the big issue. So let's start with abandoned building and vacant lots. We often hear from community members that having lots and empty buildings and vacant lots create unfriendly environment for children. So a lot of kids are scared, to walk down these streets. People fear that these spaces do invite illegal activities, drug selling, invite unwanted groups, gangs and drug dealers. They also make the block unattractive, especially when the weeds and grass grow high. Just an example, we had a parent group, a parent from a parent group at a school report that her daughter and her friends were walking to school, and that a large group of men were, just trying to get them to hang out with them. So we definitely see this as a big issue.
Cynthia, I don't mean to interrupt you, but if you could speak up a little, a lot of folks are reporting that they can't hear you so well.
Oh, okay. A next issue would be lack of bike and facility resources. So another thing we found by talking to community members is that students are not able to ride the bike because they don't feel equipped enough. So they don't feel they don't have the need to ride the bike. They don't have the equipment to ride the bike. There's a serious lack of bike shops in the community, which we refer to as bike shop desert. So even if the child do have a bike, there isn't anyone around to help fix the bike, which is a big problem. There's also issues with bike parking at the schools. We have the schools have fewer bike racks, and the location, and there's issues with a safe place to store the bikes. There's definitely bike threats that occur during school hours. Finally, many neighborhoods lack the bike infrastructure, such as bike lanes that help parents and children feel safer when riding their bike on the street. So we don't really have a lot of bike lanes in the city of Chicago. Well, particularly on the west and south side. Okay. Next is crime and violence. We already talked a little bit about traffic and crashes being a deterrent to walking and biking in schools, but I think the most important piece that we should bring up is the crime. This is a real concern, personal safety and violence that kids in our school are dealing with on an everyday basis. So I'm pretty sure you all have watched the news and seen that we did have a lot of shootings, homicide last year. We ended the year with over 500 homicides, with a dozen of those victims being school-age youth. So gang violence, bike and pedestrian crashes, and bike theft is definitely some barriers that keep students from wanting to walk and bike. So really quickly, I want to talk about a couple of solutions and resources. There are some programs that help address the issues that I talked about today. First and foremost, the city of Chicago have a program where basically like block clubs or school groups can report a trouble building, the abandoned building. So basically they fill out a form, they submit it, and the city will come out and board up the building and find the owner, whoever owns that property. Also, the Chicago Public School do have a program called Safe Passage, which pays neighborhood residents to post along the routes of the schools before and after school, so that the students can feel safe. And this program was started after a student that was killed at Finger High School on the south side. In a couple of communities, we do have community bike programs. Community bike programs offered, not only for bike sale, but bike repair. The kids can kind of learn how to fix a bike and learn safe riding skills throughout the city of Chicago. Finally, we sponsor a program called, Active Transportation Alliance sponsor a program called Better Blocks, which empower residents to make changes on their blocks due to built design. So we have been lucky to work with parent groups, parent groups like LSE and PTAs to basically do a walkability assessment on the street to identify barriers that keep people from wanting to walk and bike. And basically what we do with those barriers, we write it down, document it, take pictures of it, and we come up with a final report so the parents can advocate to their elected official for the built environment changes. So, that concludes my presentation. I'll turn it back over to Michelle.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Cynthia. That was very informative from all three of our speakers. I do want to apologize to our attendees. We're running a little bit behind, so I'm not going to waste any time. We're going to dive right into the questions. I'm just going to take control of the screen here so we can put all of the speakers' contact information up while we go through our questions. Okay, so to dive right in, Melissa, I'm actually going to put you on the hook first. So the question that we have here is, how do you sustain your walk-to-school program, especially if you have no funding to offer stipends? We always get excited during our kickoff, but then after a month or so, it dies down. So do you have any tips or information that you could provide for this attendee?
Sure. So with our Walk to School Day, we've had a lot of advocacy organizations that help sponsor that. Our Regional Safe Routes to School program funds the incentives and the toolkit that go out to the schools, but then we've had advocacy organizations that really come in, and as I mentioned with Shawano, they are going to be using their International Walk to School Day to kick off their Walking Wednesday program because they want to see more students walking or biking. So it's really just, we've had a lot of success just doing encouragement activities or even doing a big celebration after they've done the Walking Wednesday program as like, ooh, this is a lot of fun, and that has been really successful with our local Safe Routes to School programs when they do their walking program, is just to get more excitement built up and then have it like an end of a celebration event, even with our walking school bus program that we do as well. So
that's great. Okay, and I do want to add, if any of the other speakers have anything they want to add to any of these questions, please feel free to jump in at the end. Just because I'm directing it to one of the three of you doesn't mean that the other two aren't welcome to also add some tips or tricks if they have any. Okay, so let's see, moving on to our second question. Cheryl, this one is going to be for you. We're going into the safety and infrastructure realm. And this attendee asks the question, do you have any experience or tips on how to rehabilitate old streets so that they have a safe sidewalk system, traffic crossings, parking, more traffic signs, etc.? And have you run into pushback from homeowners in those neighborhoods? And if so, how did you deal with it?
Yeah, that's kind of a two-sided question there. The rehabilitation, some of our inner-city schools especially encounter that. On the walk audits when we go out, as I had said during my presentation, we usually we always try to and usually get the municipalities to participate. In the city of Las Vegas, for example, one of the traffic safety engineering professionals will come out with us on a walk audit. And, if there's disrepair, notes are made right at that point in time, recommendations for repair are made. Our cities are on cycles of repair, and so they will add that then to their cycle of repair. It may be something that they didn't even really realize was happening. And we've actually, with the schools that are actively promoting this Safe Routes to School programs, some of our municipalities are really stepping up, and rather than the cycle of repair, they sometimes will move one of the areas around the school ahead a little bit in the cycle to get the sidewalks repaired or get the crosswalks refreshed, a little bit ahead of schedule maybe, just to help us promote the Safe Routes to School. That's the benefit of getting them on board, and our community has just so come on board in that arena. Doesn't always help, but frequently it will get it. There's also has been some of our other Safe Routes to School funding. Now we're looking as we move forward we have a list of recommendations. We're going to see if we can locate other sources of funding. And then what was the second part of the question? I remember.
They were wondering if you've run into any pushback from homeowners within the neighborhood.
Yes. Yeah, and the pushback we get from homeowners is more often in some of our, inside the city, we have pockets of semi-rural homes. They're like rural preservation homes areas, and those tend to be the biggest pushback areas where the walking and biking facilities are not as great, but they're larger homes, and it's a rural type atmosphere in the middle of the city. So we do get pushback there. What we've, haven't had a whole lot of success in getting adequate walking facilities, but the kids still can walk on the shoulders of the road. They're gravel and things like that. The other communities, the homeowners are pretty supportive of having kids out walking and biking safely. They don't want to see children injured. They don't want to see kids hurt. So a lot of the older established neighborhoods are pretty supportive, and we've got some families and parents that will get out and walk in the morning at the same time the kids are. Some of our suburban schools, on the other hand, that are gated-in, walled-in communities, we are dealing with issues there. And, I appreciate other ideas on how to get some holes knocked in the walls, where if the kids could walk to school, they could walk 3 blocks, but because of the walls surrounding these gated communities, they can't walk to school because they have to go out and around the gate and all the way back to school, sometimes a mile or more. So that is an issue in the suburban areas that we have not been able to mitigate yet.
No, it's really interesting. I never even thought about the gated kind of community issue.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, moving on to our next question. Cynthia, we'll get you on the hook now. This one is more about urban schools. The question is, do you have any advice for communities facing the destruction of neighborhood urban schools in favor of, say, citywide charter or magnet, kind of selective type schools?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Sure. The question was whether or not you'd ever encountered or have any advice for communities that are facing the destruction of neighborhood urban schools, how they're kind of going into citywide charter or magnet schools these days?
Yeah, well, I haven't been able to experience that much with the charter and magnet schools. I've been working mostly with the CPS schools at the moment.
Okay, that's fine. It's a fair answer. Okay, so moving on then, we'll go to our next question, which will be for you, Melissa. And this one involves a walking school bus. And the person was wondering whether or not you use handouts when developing a walking school bus, and are there any standard forms that you kind of give to the folks who are organizing these things?
Yep, for our walking school bus, we've modeled it after the PedNet Coalition with a few modifications based on some input from the school district. And so what we've done is developed a checklist. We have a walking school bus coordinator that is actually located in that particular district. She is responsible for getting volunteers signed up. She also signs up students. She works with the school district on setting up the standards. So if the weather is too cold or if it's raining, they have a process as to like a phone tree process where she makes a call to the school district then calls the bus company. We have all of that protocol laid out. And we also do background checks. So it's they send us the volunteer list, and then we go through the Department of Justice, and we run the background check for them. It's actually less expensive for us to do it as a government agency versus somebody from an advocacy standpoint. But we do have a checklist of items that our walking school bus coordinator hits on and makes sure that everything is in place prior to starting the walking school bus in the fall or in the spring. So.
Okay, great. Sorry, I muted there for a second. Okay, so moving on to our next question. Let's see. How about we throw one at you, Cheryl, since you've been resting for a few minutes. This one is more in the administration school buy-in realm. And the question this attendee has is, how do you get the attention of schools and principals who are dealing with so many other issues on their plates? And how do you get them excited about the program? And have you had any success in overcoming administration resistance?
Hi. Yeah, we at the school level, there's not a whole lot of resistance that they don't want it to happen, but definitely the other requirements of the leadership at the school makes it hard, and they just sometimes will back off and say, I just want to do it, but I don't have time. The way that we approach that is to get them to support it, at least to say, yeah, it's a good idea, but then to find other advocates in the school that they're okay with leading these programs. Frequently, it's a teacher, and oftentimes because they're interested in the physical activity aspect of it, oftentimes it is a physical education teacher or a health teacher that wants to take it on. They would then become the school leader. But again, back to that partnership piece, I tell the principals at the school, this is not something that I want you to have to do. We're going to get people to help you. So the teacher advocate and then the parents that we have to get involved, that's critical. The parents have to be part of it or it is not successful. And then some of the community advocate groups and have them form the team that reports back to the principal and asks questions, but basically becomes the leadership team at the schools. So that's pretty much how we do it. Usually a parent and a teacher powerhouse mentor at the school, somebody really willing to take it on, is the way we do it.
Great. I think that's great advice. Okay, so let's see. Cynthia, we'll throw another one your way. And this question is whether or not you have any tips on the most effective ways to increase bicycling at a site.
So with me, I work mostly on the west and south side, which is the underserved.
And again, Cynthia, could you just speak up just a little bit? For some reason, your audio is a little
sorry
fuzzy.
About that.
Oh, it's okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, I can hear you better.
Okay, so like I was saying, I work mostly on the west and south side, which is the underserved community, and I think the best way to increase biking is to start with the bike program and the education. So I've noticed, actually, I'm speaking for myself, After School Matter program is crucial because, number one, the education that takes place is needed. So from learning how to build a bike to just safe riding skills to why it's important to wear a helmet. And also, secondly, having someone to ride with in the group. So I think starting a program, a bike program is more important, and it's a way to increase biking because I've seen it in the city of Chicago.
Great, thank you. Okay, so let's see. Melissa, our next question is going to be for you, and we're going back to the administration school buy-in realm. And this one's more asking about whether you have any tips for sustaining safer school programs when you lose leaders or there's a lot of staff turnover, which I think is something that a lot of folks encounter.
Yeah, over the last few years, we've actually encountered it quite often with the local Safe Routes to School programs and the regional Safe Routes to School program, just having a lot of turnover. And so what we've started to implement is to have schools have at least 1 to 3 representatives from the school. Now, that can be a variety of people, like a parent, a principal, a teacher. This way, it just minimizes the impact of when we do get new turnover at the administration level. We've also started looking at, when working with schools, having parents who have, say you have a parent on your local task force, maybe one that has students that are in middle school, and then also having a parent with students that are in elementary school. A lot of times our rural schools, the elementary and the middle school, are tied together, but if you can have those parents staggered as far as the age of their children at the school, so that way as those children move up into the grade levels that you don't have so much turnover and you always kind of consistently have parent representation on that task force. So.
Hi, this is Cheryl. I'd like to add a little bit to that because that's a huge issue here as well. The more than one is definitely important, having more than one advocate at the school that's working on it. But also what I look at it as actually a benefit, because many of our teachers that get involved in the programs, as they move from school to school, when they go to a new school that doesn't have it, that automatically gets interest in bringing another school on. And there's usually, if we have the parent participants, like I had said and like Melissa had said, they'll keep it going at the old school and get a new teacher, a new staff person involved to help them. I'm really excited when we can get the kindergarten, first grade parents involved, because they oftentimes will have a long time commitment to that school then.
Those are great points. Absolutely. Okay. So now we're going to move into a new realm, something we haven't talked much about yet, which is funding. And I think, Melissa and Cheryl, this may be good for both of you. So, Melissa, why don't you start just so we can keep organized. But one of the questions that an attendee is asking is, what partners should we look to in building a coalition for developing funds for infrastructure improvements?
One of the things that we've worked with our local Safe Routes to School Task Force is just when you're looking for infrastructure improvements, try to pick that low-hanging fruit. So if there is an upcoming roadway project, working with the Public Works Department or with the municipal government to make sure that those infrastructure improvements are in the plans for that reconstruction or that road project right off the bat. That has been one of the things we've really tried to stress when doing the infrastructure improvements, because that's usually the easiest way is just to incorporate the bicycle pedestrian accommodation right in that infrastructure project. One other thing is just working with your advocacy organizations. They're really resourceful, and they usually know a lot of folks that can help provide the funding, or at least know somebody who can help us put the infrastructure in place, whether that's signage, just developing those changes. And sometimes it's just the infrastructure improvements. If you're doing a bike and walk audit at the school and you have conflict points between the buses, the parents dropping off, and the students walking or biking, maybe it's just a matter of changing the way the busing works at the school, and maybe doing some remote site drop-off areas at or around that school, so parents have the option to drop off their students a couple blocks away and they're still walking into school. Those are all kinds of things that we look for. We try to look and see if there's any modifications at or around the school that could be done without the infrastructure changes. If there isn't, then we try to go the next level with working with municipal governments to see, is there an upcoming project that this could be built into. And then lastly, if there isn't, then we go and try to find additional funding through an advocacy organization.
Yeah, and this is Cheryl. I would kind of say ditto to what Melissa said, trying to include it as part of the rehab plans if there are some in place is really important. We also are working with our MPO as they make their 2-year, their 5-year, their long-range plans. We are part of the discussion, and hopefully can get some of the long-term major infrastructure issues dealt with. We also, as part of our walk audits that we did, as part of that CDC grant that we had, we have a lot of recommendations, and some of them are critical and need to be done from a safety aspect, but some of them are just, not critical from safety, but would make it better. And so we are just beginning a prioritization process where we are including members of the coalition. Let's prioritize projects at our schools, and then, look for the funding. And again, like Melissa said, sometimes it's part of the rehab plan in the community. Sometimes it requires some advocates and parents going, to their local elected officials to see if we can get things moved up. So, yeah, I agree with Melissa then on those.
Great. I think that's definitely very helpful tips for folks. Okay, moving on. Cynthia, this one is also for you. This attendee asked the question and comments that for those of us working with low-income schools where the population is not educated about health and environmental benefits of walking and biking, does anyone have a suggestion for an encouragement program that's low maintenance at first, but then can build slowly? And the attendee goes on to mention that all encouragement programs seem labor-intensive, and they can maintain them for a year, but then volunteers fizzle out because the issue isn't a priority. They then comment that it's easier in middle-class schools because these parents believe in the issue and parents have more time to volunteer. So do you have anything tips that you can give these folks, Cynthia?
Yeah, actually I have an example. At a school called Namaste, their encouragement program is very, very easy. Each kid who walks to school or bike to school, they get a ticket when they arrive. So there's a teacher or a parent standing at the front door handing out these tickets as they're the tickets to the kids as they're arriving. The school then throw like a weekly raffle for like small prizes, lunch with the principal, school T-shirts, small things like that. So that's just one example that I know of that's like working really, really well.
No, I think that's a great example. It's definitely something that people can replicate that seems pretty low maintenance.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So, Melissa, moving on to you. We really only have time for one or two more here, but walking school buses are always a hot topic, so I'll throw one of those to you. And this attendee wants to know, are there any increased costs to schools to conduct background checks on parents who conduct walking school buses?
When we do as I mentioned earlier, when we did the background checks, we are a government agency, so it's much more inexpensive for us to conduct the background checks, and usually we work with the local police department as well on that. So the increased cost is very minimal to do the background checks. We just go through the Wisconsin Department of Justice, and I believe they're around like $7 to $10 per person based on the number of volunteers. We've had one walking school bus in Green Lake, and they've done their walking school bus for about 2 years now. And so as the volunteer list grows, we've only had to add a few new background checks that have to be done. And usually if something comes flagged back, we'll go back to the police department and work with them on that issue. So it's a very minimal cost for those background checks.
That's great. Okay, so moving on to our last question here, because we are coming right up on 2 o'clock, and this one I believe Cheryl and Melissa both probably touch on, and Cheryl, you may have covered this a little bit in your presentation, but just folks, a lot of people have kind of asked whether or not you have a step-by-step action plan for starting a Safe Routes to School program, and in general, whether you have any tips for people who are just starting out. I think that's kind of a good place to end.
This is Cheryl. I'll take it on first. Our step-by-step plan, the first thing that we do is once a school is interested, we do a Safe Routes to School workshop, and we try to do it for 3 or 4 or 5 schools at a time, where we invite an administrator and or a teacher and a couple parents from each school to come to an all-day workshop. And that's the one that I talked about, that we have the law enforcement and the public works officials and advocates also attend. We try to do those 2 or 3 times a year. That's a first step. We go through a modified Safe Routes to School workshop that normally takes 3 or 4 days, I think. Our state coordinator helps us in this because our state coordinator, our last state coordinator at least, was trained nationally as a Safe Routes to School coordinator. So we do that presentation going through the 5 E's, and as part of that process, then we have the schools come up with at least their initial plan that they want to do, addressing 1 or 2 issues. And it's all part of the National Safe Routes to School. You can find it on the Safe Routes to School website, their handbook, the toolkit that they have. We use that and start from there. And then from there, it kind of depends on what the school wants and what the school's going to do, what the next steps are.
Great. And Melissa, do you have anything to add?
Sure, actually I do a little bit. I agree. We do some very similar things with that Cheryl does as well. When we first get contacted by a school that they want to do a Safe Routes to School program, we help facilitate their task force by inviting all of the folks that would be engaged in their group. And we have our first meeting. What we really talk about is what are the issues or concerns, or what things have been done in the past regarding education or encouragement activities, and make sure we get all of those things out on the table. And then usually after that, we have the student surveys conducted and the parent surveys conducted. And then we also do a bike and walk audit. And as I mentioned earlier in my presentation, we usually do one in the fall or the spring, and then one also in the winter to address some of those winter concerns. During this time, the task force continually meets and discusses these issues or concerns, or talks about their ideas or plans for implementation, and then we develop recommendations lastly and talk about some of the low-hanging fruit that they can really implement at their school, whether those are education encouragement activities. But we do in Wisconsin, for the Safe Routes to School grants through the Department of Transportation, we are required to have local action plans completed prior to applying for infrastructure and non-infrastructure funding. So that's really one of the ways that we do that. But as we're going through the planning process, we've actually started working with schools to implement activities. So as they're doing a Safe Routes to School plan, they can still participate in International Walk to School Day or Bike Safety Day or check out a bike blender. They don't have to wait for their plan to be completed to do a few of these things. And that was one of the challenges we were seeing initially when we did the planning, is that the momentum would be lost. And so that's how we've overcome that barrier. So,
no, that's great. Okay, well, we're a few minutes after 2 o'clock, so we need to wrap up. I want to thank all of our speakers. Everyone did a wonderful job. So Cynthia, Melissa, and Cheryl, thank you again so much. It was very informative. And I want to thank all of our attendees again for coming and joining us this afternoon. We did the best we could to try and get to as many questions as we could. I do apologize if we didn't reach your question. If you do have any really pressing questions, feel free to email me, and I can either try to forward those along to the speakers, or hopefully you were able to jot down the speaker's contact information so you could maybe forward that directly to you if we weren't able to get to your question this afternoon. And again, keep your eyes open for some notices that will be coming out for upcoming webinars from both AmericaWalks or from the National Center for Safe Routes to School. And I hope that everybody has a wonderful afternoon. Goodbye, everybody.